Welcome to the podcast, folks. Today we're diving deep into the fallout from dismantling a major multinational arrangement, the Iran nuclear deal, a framework that was designed to keep Iran's nuclear ambitions in check.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? So the deal wasn't just a side agreement. It was built by a coalition of, global powers including the US, UK, France, Germany, China, Russia, and the EU, and even got the stamp of approval from the UN Security Council.
Absolutely. And that matters. We're talking about a framework that was based on strict monitoring, verification, and limits to ensure Iran's program was entirely peaceful.
Yep.
It wasn't a mere handshake between rivals. It was an internationally backed strategy.
Right, which brings us to what happened next. The deal, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was essentially a box to contain Iran's nuclear efforts, correct?
Exactly. It was like a firewall meant to keep dangerous nuclear ambitions at bay without igniting conflict. But then came a dramatic twist in 2018 when the U.S. pulled out of the deal.
And that's where things started to unravel. I mean, leaving that deal was a self-destructive move in many ways.
Right? And here's the kicker. The withdrawal wasn't followed by a robust alternative.
Yeah.
It was like tearing down an airbag in your car without installing a new one.
I totally get that analogy. And by walking away, the U.S. not only disrespected Iran, but also sent shockwaves to its allies that were part of that same deal.
Exactly. American credibility with allies such as Britain, France, Germany, and the EU took a serious hit. They saw that U.S. commitments might just vanish with the next election cycle.
Yep, that's a huge consequence. And then, as a result, we ended up with a markedly more dangerous scenario, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. Fast forward to April 2026, and things had escalated dramatically. Iran had managed to enrich uranium to about 60% purity, essentially a precursor to
Right.
weapons-grade material. That's enough for several bombs if further enriched.
So let me get this straight. By dismantling the original agreement, they essentially made Iran's nuclear program stronger than before.
Precisely. Instead of tightening the reins, pulling out of the deal without a better strategy, paved the way for an even more advanced nuclear position for Iran. And that's really what makes this decision look so bleak.
And what's even more mind-boggling is that this misstep didn't just escalate nuclear risks, it also played a part in sparking a full-blown conflict.
Absolutely. The war that erupted starting February 28, 2026 has had devastating consequences, both on the ground with U.S. servicemen and women, and financially with costs soaring into tens of billions.
Yeah. I read that 13 U.S. service members lost their lives and hundreds were wounded, which is a tragic toll by any measure.
Right, and that human cost is just one part. The financial fallout is staggering too. We're talking about possibly $25 to $35 billion for the war alone, not to mention additional damages to critical Middle Eastern energy infrastructure.
Oh. And then there are the broader consequences, like regional instability, shipping disruptions, and even global economic impacts with slower growth and higher inflation.
Exactly. It's like setting off a chain reaction. After dismantling a peaceful, carefully constructed deal, the fallout now includes an unstable region, skyrocketing energy prices, and, of course, a weakened diplomatic standing for the U.S.
Right. But here's something I'm curious about. With all this destruction and loss, why now, after the war and all the costs, are we back to discussing the very same issues that the original deal was meant to solve?
That's a great question. The irony is palpable. The head of the IAEA is saying that any new deal to end the conflict must include robust monitoring and verification of enrichment limits. Exactly what the original agreement had in place. In essence, we're being asked to trust a process that we once abandoned.
It kind of feels like demolishing a building and then asking someone to rebuild it exactly as it was.
Yep, spot on. It's like blowing up a fire extinguisher, letting the fire rage, and then once the house is ashes, insisting on buying a new extinguisher.
Yeah, that's a bitter pill. But isn't it fair to say that even if you're not a fan of Iran's regime, the trust factor is completely eroded?
Yeah, that's so true. When one administration can just shred an agreement with no substitute in place, why would any partner or adversary expect future commitments to stick? It sends a message of unpredictability.
Exactly. And this unpredictability undermines not just direct adversaries, but also allies who had placed their trust in the U.S. to uphold international agreements.
Right? It's all interconnected. Our reputation on the global stage suffers, and credibility as a reliable partner is at stake. We see that the breakdown of a carefully balanced deal led directly to a cascade, irresponsible policymaking that exacerbated nuclear risks and even led to war.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, some might argue that, well, maybe there were reasons for this withdrawal. But, it's hard to justify a decision that not only left the box empty, but also set off dominoes.
Exactly. And it's important to address those critiques head on. Some will say that pulling out was, at best, a means to renegotiate, but then look at the debris: higher nuclear threats, economic costs, more human casualties. Respectfully, it just doesn't add up.
That's a solid point. And looking at the numbers, 440.9 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. That's a huge leap in potential, isn't it?
Totally. For perspective, that level of enrichment brings Iran perilously close to producing weapons-grade material. It's alarming, quite like you're handing over the keys to a dangerous machine.
Right. Thus, dismantling an effective diplomatic framework without a clear, safer alternative was not just a policy misstep. It was a systemic failure.
Exactly. And after all the chaos, the lives lost, the financial toll, the geopolitical instability, the only option on the table is essentially to try to revisit the original conceptual framework. It's like having to retrace your steps after burning the bridge.
That comparison really hits home. Now, given all these layers, do you think there's any meaningful lesson for future policy decisions?
Absolutely. The central lesson is that policy decisions can't just be about short-term political gains. They have profound and far-reaching ramifications that, if ignored, can spiral into uncontrollable crises.
Yep, right. It shows the need for consistency and credibility. It's almost as if you can't simply toss aside long-standing agreements without thinking critically about the potential fallout.
Exactly. It's a cautionary tale, a reminder to honor commitments not just for their own sake, but because they maintain global order and mutual trust.
And the irony, of course, is that after all the chaos, we're back to square one, talking about the same requirements for verification, inspections, and trust that the original deal had built up.
Yep, it's like a revolving door. Dismantle something effective, and then later, you're forced to rebuild it from the ground up. It emphasizes that strength in foreign policy really is about stability and reliable commitments, not short-lived gestures.
Absolutely right. Well, this has been a thorough dive into a policy decision that, in hindsight, seems not only risky, but frankly, self-defeating.
Indeed, it reminds us that when you destroy a solid, internationally backed framework just to seek political fiber in the moment, the long-term consequences can be catastrophic.
No doubt. Thanks for walking through all these details. It really puts things into perspective on how one bold policy move can end up unraveling stability on a global scale.
Absolutely. And remember, with every decision that affects global security, the stakes are not just political, they're human. That ultimately is what matters most.
Indeed. And on that note, thanks everyone for tuning in. Until next time, stay informed and keep questioning.